All the women I desired, all the goods that money could buy, nothing was missing. The world was at my feet, and I knew exactly how to play it. But on one fateful night, with a single kiss, I fell into the traps of hell. It was the beginning of the end. A kiss that dragged me to a horrible place where not even demons dare to venture. Hell. Don't you want to be the devil's next victim? Right? Then sign up for the channel right now. You will discover the stories of those who, like me, fell into hell's traps and bitterly repented. Don't be another piece in the evil one's game. Protect yourself. Open your eyes and avoid the fall. Click subscribe and change your destiny before it's too late. My name is Arthur Vasconcelos, and I am a winner. I have worked hard to have everything I have: money, luxury, influence. From a very young age, I learned that the world belongs to the strongest, to the smartest, to those who know how to play the game of life. Clinging to cheap sentimentality. I've never been one of those who believe in luck or destiny. For me, success was just a matter of effort and intelligence. I had everything: luxurious apartments, imported cars, trips to the most exclusive places in the world, the best restaurants, the best wines, the best clothes. I didn't just belong to the elite. I was the elite. I only surrounded myself with people on my level, those who had something to offer, who weren't a burden. Friendships only when they were useful, relationships only when they were interesting. I never understood people who settled for little, who forgave betrayals, who wasted their lives on feelings. I valued power, control, pleasure, and that was exactly what brought me to the edge of the abyss that night. I was in a sophisticated bar, one of the many I used to frequent. Expensive whiskey in hand, sharp gaze as always, ready for my next conquest. It was then that Lilith appeared. She wasn't like the others. She had a kind of beauty that seemed impossible, as if the night itself had sculpted her. Pale skin, deep eyes, and a smile that seemed to know all the secrets of the world. When she looked at me, I felt a chill run down my spine. Something I'd never experienced before. It wasn't fear, it was fascination. She approached without hesitation and said my name before I had time to introduce myself. Arthur Vasconcelos, the man who never loved anyone. I laughed, finding humor in it. That's not true. I love many people, it's just that for a short time, she smiled enigmatically. So maybe today is the night you finally feel something eternal. I should have left at that moment. Something inside me screamed that this was different, that I was playing with fire, but I've always liked challenges. We talked, drank, danced. Every word she spoke of was an invitation to something unknown, dangerous but irresistible. When she took my hand and led me through dark streets, I didn't hesitate. She led me to an old building, a place I'd never seen before. We climbed the stairs. With each step, my breathing grew heavier, my heart pounded. But it wasn't just desire, it was a different feeling. Something primal, something evil in the dark room. Under the flickering candlelight, Lilith touched my face. Her fingers were cold, but her gaze was pure fire. "Are you ready to know true pleasure, Arthur?" "I always have been," I replied. I was convinced when she kissed me. The taste was sweet and bitter at the same time. My whole body shuddered. An intense pleasure coursed through my veins, but suddenly the pleasure turned to pain. My chest burned. My vision blurred, and everything around me began to distort. I tried to speak, but my voice disappeared. The room faded. The candles went out, and then the floor opened up. Beneath my feet, I was falling into hell, and it was only the beginning. The fall seemed endless. The biting wind whizzed in my ears, but there was no air. There was no resistance. Just a dark, absolute void. My body spun into nothingness, and a strange cold invaded me, unlike any human sensation. Suddenly, the impact hit my body against a rough, hot floor. The crash was dry, but the pain it was silent, as if my skin felt everything but my body was unable to react. I tried to breathe, but the air was thick like smoke mixed with sulfur. I stood up with difficulty. The ground beneath my hands was cracked and rocky. I exhaled. A stifling heat. In the distance, craggy mountains cut the sky a deep red, as if the firmament itself were bleeding. The horizon trembled with the sight of distorted towers and black ruins lit by sporadic flames that emerged from cracks in the ground. Then the screams were muffled and echoed in the air like a distant whisper, but at the same time, they seemed to come from all sides. Moans of agony, wails of despair, like an eternal chorus of lost souls. My heart raced. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. A presence took shape in front of me, emerging from the shadows as if it had always been there, tall and imposing, wearing a black cloak that moved like smoke and radiated something other than malevolent authority. Its eyes were incandescent golden slits like glowing embers. Alive in the midst of darkness, he stopped in front of me, a cold smile on his face, and spoke with a deep voice as sharp as red-hot iron. "Arthur Vasconcelos. You've finally arrived. Ah, how fun it is to see arrogance melt into despair. Haven't you noticed? The trap was set from the moment you locked eyes with Lilith. She didn't appear by chance. She came looking for what already belongs to you. How many hearts have you broken? How many empty promises have you made? How much lust have you consumed without ever feeling true love? Because now, everything you desired in life will be your eternal torture. The pleasure you sought will become your punishment. An insatiable desire that will never be quenched. A fire that will burn inside you without ever going out. Welcome to your new home, Arthur. The hell of lust." My legs reacted before my mind could process it. I ran. The heat of hell no longer surprised me. But what I was about to see did something even worse. My soul followed. Moving forward through that desolate land with the cracked ground and the sky tinged with a somber red. The air was heavy, and the sound around me was no longer screams of pain but low, seductive whispers enveloping me. Then I saw her. She was kneeling, dressed in a long, torn red dress, her blonde hair falling over her shoulders like a golden veil. Her filthy skin, even in that place of shadows and torment, seemed to shine as if it still carried vestiges of the beauty it once had. She trembled not with fear but with desire. Around her, shadows danced. Faceless men and women, perfect silhouettes of sculpted bodies moving in a slow, hypnotic rhythm, approaching her. They whispered promises in her ear, running their fingers over her skin but never fully touching her. I saw her eyes open wide, her lips parting in desperation. She wanted, needed, but never got it. Then she moaned a groan of absolute frustration. Her fingers dragged themselves along the floor trying to grasp anything, any trace of touch, any shred of pleasure, but it all dissipated like fog, and it was then that she noticed my presence. She lifted her head slowly, and when our eyes met, I recognized it was hunger, but not a common hunger. It was a black hole of need. An insatiable desire that turned into pain from not being able to be satisfied. She opened her mouth. The raspy, cutting voice came from someone who had already screamed too loud to be heard. "They won't let me. They make me want them, but they never let me touch her." She dragged her knees toward me, and I stepped back. Instinctively, I just wanted to feel again, just once, just once. Her eyes shone with deep despair. She didn't want to hurt me. She wanted me to set her free, but no one could set her free. She was there because in life she lived only by desire. Suddenly, visions began to form in the air around us, like shadows cast by the flames of hell. I saw Helena in life. She was dazzling. She had everything. Beauty, money, power. But above all, she had lovers. Many lovers. Rich, powerful, influential men. All fell at her feet. She never loved anyone. She only possessed. For her, each lover was a conquest, another trophy in her collection. Destroyed marriages, broken promises, crushed hearts. It was all part of the game. Pleasure was her seductive religion. She conquered, and when a man grew bored or became useless, she discarded him mercilessly. I never wanted to feel anything but fleeting ecstasy. She had never known love. She had never desired anything that was not carnal, and now that was her punishment. Her lovers were there, all of them. But now they were untouchable shadows. Unreachable people desired her but would never truly touch her. She felt the hunger inside her, the desire burning like fire, but she would never have relief. Her own sins were now consuming her. She screamed again, tearing at her throat and falling forward, her fingers clutching my foot. I walked away, feeling dread rise in my spine. If I continued down that path, that would be my destiny. I kept going, but the image of Helena writhing with unquenchable desire still burned in my mind. That was what awaited me. My feet sank into the dry, cracked earth. The air burned in my lungs. The heat was suffocating, but the worst part wasn't the fire. It was the feeling that hell itself was watching me. The path led me to a different place. It was a city within hell, but not just any city. It was an eternal party. The streets were covered in a red carpet. Lights flickered like in a large, decadent casino. The smell of alcohol floated in the air, along with a thick, cloying perfume. Toxic, I saw bodies dancing, laughing, moving to the rhythm of music I couldn't hear. Men and women slithered over each other like snakes. Their clothes were tight and revealing. Their expressions were filled with desire. But something was wrong. Everyone's eyes were empty. No one seemed truly happy. The smiles were forced, the laughter mechanical, the gestures repetitive. And at the center of it all, sitting on a luxurious sofa, holding a crystal glass, was he. The king of the nights. I recognized that type of man because he was like me. He wore an impeccable suit, but now it was wrinkled and worn. His black hair was disheveled, and his beard was growing uncontrollably. But despite his unkempt appearance, he still emanated power, or rather, he tried to. He gripped the glass tightly. His fingers trembled slightly. His eyes were red and bloodshot, as if he hadn't slept in centuries. But the worst part wasn't that. The worst part was his expression. He looked at the people around him but couldn't see them. He was trapped inside his own nightmare, and then the women surrounded him. Seductive bodies glided toward him, running their hands over his shoulders, whispering in his ear. He closed his eyes and drank the glass in his fingers. It was filled with a golden liquid, thick as honey. He brought it to his mouth and drank desperately for a moment. He seemed to relax. His posture changed. His shoulders drooped. A smile appeared on his face, but then the effect wore off. His eyes flew open. He took another glass and drank more and more. Nothing changed. Nothing worked. And then he screamed. He threw the glass to the floor. He stood up abruptly. He grabbed one of the women and pulled her toward him. He tried to kiss her, but their lips pierced nothing. The woman wasn't real. She laughed and vanished into thin air like smoke. Then he fell to his knees, gasping, his eyes wide open. "Why isn't it working?" he muttered to himself, clutching his head, and then I understood. I saw visions of his life forming around him, as if hell itself were telling his story. He was a king of the night. He was a powerful man, owner of clubs and exclusive parties. A master of lust, always surrounded by the most beautiful women, the best wines, the most expensive drugs, everything within his reach. He had no limits. He never knew love. He never wanted anything beyond immediate pleasure, and when the pleasure began to wear off, he sought more women, more drinks, more lust, but he always returned to the same emptiness. Now, here in hell, he lived his worst nightmare. He was surrounded by everything he had ever wanted, the wine, the bodies, the parties, but nothing else satisfied him. With each sip, he felt only emptiness. With each caress, he felt nothingness. He could no longer feel pleasure. That was his punishment, eternal desire, never to be satisfied. The whispers returned to wrap it around him, and he looked at me. His eyes were depths of despair, and I saw myself in him. My throat went dry, my body trembled. I lived like him, and if I didn't run away, that would be my fate. I also took a step back. He looked at me as if begging for something I couldn't even name, but I couldn't do anything, so I ran. The heat was still stifling and the smell of sulfur burned my nostrils, but now what weighed most on me wasn't the atmosphere, it was the fear. The two souls I encountered before were etched in my mind like open scars. I could no longer deny that hell was real, and if I was there, it meant I belonged there. I continued along a narrow path. The stone floor gave way to something unexpected: mirrors, first small pieces scattered on the floor, then larger pieces reflecting parts of my face, and then further on, tall, perfect mirrors covering the walls like an endless corridor. It was when I saw her, a woman standing in the middle of the path, motionless like a statue. She was carrying a long dress made of a shiny silver fabric, but torn in several places. Her hair was black and fell flawlessly over her shoulders, as if she had just stepped out of a gala ball. But something was wrong. Her gaze was fixed on the mirror in front of her, unblinking. I approached slowly, my feet crushing the pieces of glass scattered on the floor. It was then that I realized what was happening. Her reflection was different in the image in the mirror. She was perfect. The dress was whole. Her skin gleamed like porcelain. Her eyes shone with confidence. She was a powerful goddess. But the real woman standing in front of the mirror was only a shadow of what she once was. Her skin was pale, her eyes sunken, her face marked by time, sadness, and emptiness. And then the mirror whispered, a sweet, feminine voice, low, almost hypnotic. "You are still beautiful. You can come back, just wish." The woman's eyes shone. Her fingers trembled, and she tried to touch the reflection, but as soon as her fingers touched the glass, the mirror, the woman broke. She screamed. She fell to her knees, trying to put the pieces back together desperately, as if her life depended on it. Her lips trembled. Her breathing became ragged. She tried desperately to rebuild herself. But there was no stopping her. It was then that I understood. I saw the images all around her come to life. Hell was showing me her story. She was a dazzling woman in life, a celebrity, a model, a muse to countless men. The spotlights followed her wherever she went. Her name was whispered. At parties, her face graced magazine covers. She had the world at her feet, and she knew it. She never needed love. Beauty was her weapon, her currency, her identity. Every man was a conquest. Every woman a rival to be overcome. She loved no one but her own reflection. But time passed. The first wrinkles appeared. The proposals diminished. The passionate glances became looks of pity. Youth was fading, and she didn't accept him. She sought surgeries, treatments, and did everything possible to remain desired, admired, and revered. But time is cruel. Time is cruel. It can't be stopped. She died before accepting the truth. She died still fighting against the inevitable. And now, she was condemned to see forever. Who once was her punishment wasn't the fire. It wasn't the physical torture. It was the eternal obsession with a beauty that would never return. She would stay there forever, in front of mirrors that would show what she lost, what she would never have again. I saw her fingers dragging along the floor, cutting themselves on the shards of glass, but she didn't care about the pain. She just wanted to be beautiful again. Her wail of despair echoed through the corridor of mirrors. I stepped back. I couldn't stay there. She didn't see me, I saw nothing else. I only saw what I had lost, and for the first time since I fell into that place, I felt something stronger than fear. I felt sorry because deep down, he wasn't very different from me. The echo of the broken mirrors still resonated in my mind as I walked away. I needed to get out of there, but every step I took me deeper into those ruins of desire and despair. The path in front of me opened into a large hall of black stone with twisted columns that looked like bones entangled in weak, bluish flames. There was a long, faded red carpet in the center, leading to a throne. There he sat alone. On a throne of gold and iron, he was a tall, broad-shouldered man, still dressed in an impeccable suit, but his body was disheveled, as if he had forgotten how to maintain his dignity. He was elegant but empty. His gray hair fell over his half-closed eyes. He held a crystal goblet in his hand, swirling the dark liquid inside but never drinking it. Behind him were thousands of names carved on the wall, men and women, some accompanied by dates, others by short phrases. She told me he loved to madness. He promised to wait for me. I left behind, and then he laughed, a dry laugh, a hollow sound of someone who has forgotten what it means to be happy. He looked at me as if he knew who I was, but his eyes were empty. Around him, feminine shadows danced, beautiful, seductive, but intangible. They slid their fingers over his shoulders. They laughed in his ear, but their bodies were like mist. He tried to catch them, but his hands pierced the air. And then I understood. Hell began to show me his story. He was a conqueror in life. There was never a woman he couldn't have. He was a man who was charming, charismatic, seductive, rich, successful, always surrounded by beauties at exclusive parties. The world was his and he knew it. But he never stayed. Every relationship was a victory, one more name on his list. He didn't love me or he didn't love me, and when he got tired, he moved on to the next. Women fell in love with him, cried for him, some perhaps never recovered. He always believed he could have anyone at any time, but he never chose anyone, and then time passed, his charm was no longer as effective. Women began to ignore him. The looks were no longer of desire, but of indifference. He tried to relive his glory days. He tried to conquer. He tried to seduce, but the truth was simple. He had become irrelevant. He died alone, with no one to love him. And now hell had given him what he always wanted. All the women he ever desired, but none of them were real. Now he lived surrounded by ghosts of the past, shadows of empty conquests. They laughed, whispered his name, drew closer, but could never be touched. He was condemned to forever desire what he never valued in life. I saw him tilt his head back, looking at the black, endless ceiling of hell, holding the cup he never drank from. I conquered them all, but now none belong to me. And then he cried, not a silly cry, but the silent cry of one who has already given up fighting. I stepped back because, for the first time since I got there, I understood something terrible. That man no longer wanted me. Seduce no one, he just wanted to be loved, but no one would ever love him, and perhaps no one ever had loved him. That was his hell. I didn't know how much time had passed. Every step I took dragged me deeper into that nightmare. Every soul I saw was a reflection of myself. I was no longer just an observer. I was understanding that hell wasn't a place you went to, it was a mirror of the soul. But nothing would prepare me for what came next. The ground beneath my feet turned smooth, dark like polished glass. The heat increased, and the air grew heavy. It was as if the very space around me was alive, pulsing, waiting for something. And then her voice filled everything. You've gone too far, Arthur. My back shuddered. She emerged from the shadows, standing on a black altar, towering above me, like a queen over her domain. Lilith, unlike the other souls, did not suffer. She was not broken. She was hell itself. Tall, slender, dressed in the black cloak that flowed like smoke, her eyes were two red abysses burning with a living flame, and her lips held a smile that was both cruel and seductive. Do you think you're special, Arthur? Do you think you can walk among the damned and emerge unscathed? Her voice was like honey and poison at the same time, hypnotic. I couldn't answer. She took a step forward, and the ground shook. Men like you always fall. You always think you control your destiny, that you can have it all, that you can possess everything, without ever paying the price. But look closely at where you are now. She opened her arms, and hell answered. Screams rose from the ground. The fire crackled louder. The souls I'd seen before, Helena, the king of the knights, the woman in the mirror, the conqueror, appeared around us, trapped in their eternal curses. These were the ones who came before you, Arthur. Everyone believed they had the world in their hands. Everyone believed they could escape. I began to back away. My heart pounded, and now it's your turn. She moved forward. Each step of hers toward the air vibrated. Her presence was crushing. I wanted to flee, but my body wouldn't obey. Did you like lust, Arthur? Did you like being a king among mortals? To have it all. To live only for pleasure, worrying about nothing but your own desire. My breath caught in my throat. She reached out and I felt something pulling at me. It was as if invisible chains were holding me to the ground. My body grew heavier. My feet sank into darkness. She smiled. You belong to me now. And then the ground cracked. Fire rose up, exploding around me. And hands emerged from the shadows, grabbing my ankles, dragging me down. Despair took hold. I was going to be devoured by hell. I tried to scream, but my voice was drowned out by the heat, by the weight of the air itself. And then the light came, clear, warm, devastating. For a moment, hell itself trembled. Lilith stepped back, her eyes glowing with absolute hatred. And then a voice echoed throughout the abyss, "He doesn't belong to you," and everything stopped. I felt the weight disappear. The heat dissipated. The hands that were dragging me vanished, and then I saw him. Jesus. His presence was serene but powerful. He wasn't covered in gold or surrounded by divine lightning. He was simply him. But his gaze saw me completely. Not as Lilith saw me, not as a trophy, not as a sinner. He saw me as I truly was. And then he extended his hand toward me. "Come, Arthur." I didn't think about it. I simply took his hand. The light enveloped me, pulling me away from the abyss, tearing me from Lilith's clutches and the flames of hell. The weight disappeared, the heat dissipated, and suddenly silence stood still. The ground beneath my feet was no longer hot rock. There were no whispering shadows or invisible chains pulling me down. Everything around me was endless white, with no beginning or end. And in front of me, he was there. Jesus. I didn't know what to expect. Perhaps an overwhelming presence. Perhaps a booming voice. But he was just him, simple, serene, and yet the most powerful thing I'd ever felt. When his eyes met mine, there was no condemnation. There was something far worse. There was truth. And then he spoke. "Arthur. You've fallen into the trap. The hell you saw wasn't a dream, nor an abstract warning. It was a glimpse of what lies ahead. And you continue to live as you have. The life you chose. The lust that rules you. The hearts you broke. All of that brought you to this path. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to say it wasn't so bad, that I was just enjoying life. But how could I after what I saw? The souls I encountered. Helena, the king of the nose. The woman in the mirror. The conqueror. They were all like me. They all believed they were untouchable, and now they were there forever. Jesus took a step toward me. And her gaze seemed to pierce my soul. Lilith didn't appear in your life by chance. Do you think she found you by coincidence? That night was just another one of many. She was sent to lure you to hell, and you accepted the invitation without hesitation. If you had died that night, Arthur, you wouldn't have returned. My breath stopped. I was one step away from being damned forever, but I didn't. You still have time. You still have life. Arthur. You can still choose. The weight of those words fell upon me like an avalanche. Everything could still be changed. But how had I already gone so far? I had already lived in a way that seemed impossible to reverse. How could someone like me redeem myself? Jesus saw my doubt. He simply smiled. Not a mocking smile, not a sneer. It was a smile of hope. And then he said the last thing before it all disappeared. You just have to want it. Arthur. The light intensified, and before I could say anything, I woke up. My breath came in a deep sigh, as if I were emerging from the water after almost I was drowning. My eyes suddenly opened. I was lying in bed, my chest was rising and falling unevenly, my whole body was trembling, sweat running down my forehead, my heart was beating so fast it felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. I looked around. I was in my room. The cold concrete walls. The large window was open to the city outside. The lamp next to me was still lit. Nothing seemed out of place, nothing except me. I sat up in bed, my muscles still tense, trying to understand what had happened. Lilith wasn't there. That room. I remembered being there with her. I remembered the kiss, the promise, the feeling of being dragged to a place where I didn't belong, but now everything was empty. She was gone, or maybe she'd never been there. My mind screamed at me to rationalize. Maybe I drank too much. Maybe it was just a nightmare, but deep down I knew. None of it was a dream. I saw hell. I felt hell. I saw what would happen to me if I continued living the way I was living. I saw my own destiny burning before my eyes, and I had a second chance. I couldn't waste it. I got out of bed, my legs still weak. I walked to the mirror and looked at the man in front of me. He was still Arthibus Canellos, the rich man, the seducer, the conqueror. But something inside him had changed. He no longer wanted to be that man. What was the point of having everything if, in the end, I would have nothing? What was the point of possessing the world if my soul was damned? The answer came like a whisper in my mind. You just have to want it. I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. I wanted it, and for the first time in years, I knew exactly what I needed to do. The experience I lived through taught me a truth I had previously ignored. The devil doesn't need to drag us to hell by force. He only offers us an easy path and makes us believe that we are in control. Lilith didn't appear in my life by chance. She was sent. And I walked straight into the trap without resistance. The enemy is cunning. He doesn't appear with horns and a trident. He disguises himself as desire, pleasure, conquest. He makes temptation seem irresistible, turns sin into something attractive. He makes you believe that nothing can touch you, but everything has a price. Hell is not a distant place, a myth created to scare children. It's closer than we imagine and waits patiently. The question is, do you know how to recognize the traps before falling into them? The devil knows our weaknesses. He knows what attracts us and offers us exactly what we want to hear. And if I had died that night, and if I hadn't received a second chance, I wouldn't be here today telling this story. That's why I subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because hell has many doors and I want to show you how to avoid them. Together, we will open our eyes to all the enemy's traps before it's too late. We invite you to subscribe to our channel and explore powerful testimonies that reveal the devil's traps in our lives. Through these true stories, you will learn to identify the warning signs and how to defend yourself against the temptations that can divert your path to the light. Each story offers valuable lessons and a deeper understanding of how to remain steadfast in your faith. Don't walk alone in this battle. Join us on this important mission of knowledge and spiritual growth. Click the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any content.